Well, welcome everybody. This is a hangout I've been wanting to do for a few weeks. As some of you know, it's been kind of long in the planning to get us all together. I want to talk about what is holding people up from LinkedIn to want to also use Google+. And I see a lot of people digging their heels in. And so I wanted to have a discussion with both sides of the coin here. And so that's why I have Greg and I have Marianne. And so I thought first let's let everybody give a quick introduction of themselves. And let's see how we all came together. So Greg, why don't you go first?
Sure. Yeah, well, I'm a UK-based LinkedIn specialist and social media trainer. And I've been on Google Plus for about, this is my second life actually. Probably a couple of years ago I got on first of all and I didn't really get it. So this is my second time round.
You're muted, Susan.
All right, and Mark, how about you? Welcome. You're muted.
Well,
there you go.
Nope, I'm not anymore. I am currently working towards developing tactics and strategies for social media optimization, which is where I'm a lot of focus, of course, right now on Google Plus because Google Plus has authorship and all those kind of cool things that can really supercharge your website and your personal authority online and get you up in the search. So I kind of focus on that, but I've got a lot of background on LinkedIn, going back to LinkedIn groups. I used to manage about 15 of them with quite a large membership, so I've been very active there as well. I'm just kind of on a hiatus here, hanging out in Google land, but you know, I've got roots in both places, so I'm very interested in trying to, you know, when I interact with my LinkedIn first level connections, you know, I'm always telling them don't put all of your eggs in one basket is pretty much what my mantra there, and I say, you know, even if you're not really that interested in diving into Google Plus right now, you should probably just know what it is and understand a little bit. So that's kind of where I'm coming from right now. I'm not trying to get people to defect from LinkedIn. I'm just trying to get them to, you know, keep their options open is where I'm at.
All right, thank you. And Ronnie Bincer, the Hangout Helper, you are the authority on Hangouts, and your courses and the things you offer, to me, are a must for any business with a force that wants to be out there and visible in social media.
Thank you. I came from a little bit of a different background than many, or than some that are using social. I primarily came from a background of SEO, search engine optimization, specifically with the video meaning a video SEO world. And when I first came into Google Plus, which was about 2.5 years, or close to when it started, I guess it's about 2.5 years ago now, I started posting on purpose, is what I say, and to see if it would make a difference in search engine results. And it did in a short period of time, 2 weeks, literally. And that, for me, was incredibly different and awesome and so different than my other efforts in other social places. I started drinking the Kool-Aid and I haven't looked back.
All right. And Marianne Vanilla of the Vanilla Group, you're kind of the other side of the coin, and you are just now starting to dip your toes into Google+, and you seem to have an interest in the Hangouts on there, but I know you are a huge fan of LinkedIn and rely on it.
Yeah, I do use LinkedIn pretty heavily, and I don't just focus only on that. So I'm on Facebook. I drive a lot of traffic back to the site through other things that I do. I'm on Twitter. I use Quora a little bit. So there's other things that I participate in. I've not gotten into Google Plus at all. So I do like Hangouts, and there's a lot of features of that I really like. As far as the page that I have set up, I have like 0 activity on it, and then I have a lot of thoughts about the rest of it, so and how I would use it. So no, I thought this is a great topic.
Oh, great. Well, I'm glad everybody's here, so let's just go ahead and open it up. The one thing I'm noticing for me, the biggest holdup is time. If I'm hanging out here a lot, I can't be over there because I only have maybe, you know, an hour to 2 hours a day to dedicate to all the connections, to the emailing, to responding to comments. And where do you all see that? Do you see that as one of the biggest stumbling blocks? Greg?
Yeah, I do. I do think that's a big problem. I was talking to a colleague today, Christina Dramillo, and she's a LinkedIn strategist based in the States. And I asked her the question, because I saw that she's on Google Plus, but she has a presence, but there's no activity. And I explained to her we were having this discussion tonight, and asked her what was the reason that held her back, and that's what she said: time. She just doesn't have the time. She's so busy on LinkedIn, she just doesn't have the time to invest in another platform.
Yeah, and I think. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just wasn't sure how we're running this. I would say time is a big factor, and for me, I get so much more traction on doing activity that I do in Google and let that be, in essence, broadcast to these other places, that it seems to be a better solution for me, primarily because what I do focuses around search. And Google owns search. Therefore, this seems to be the place for me to invest my time. If I can't split it amongst all these other places, where's the most efficient place? And for me, it seems to be clearly Google+.
I agree. That's what I'm finding. Marianne, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to say that I do propagate all of my social media from a single point. So everything will go out on Facebook, Twitter, the Vanilla Group site, and LinkedIn all simultaneously. So that I've coordinated, so I don't spend a lot of time on that, and a lot of it's automated. Google Plus to me seems like it's so different from everything else. So I don't spend a lot of time on Facebook because that's not really where my customers are. It's a checkbox presence, and so that's fine. But and I'm very responsive anytime somebody it engages. I mean, we're there. But as far as spending a lot of time on Facebook, that's not where we're at. But the other platforms we do. Google Plus is so. There's just a lot of things, and I know from an adoption standpoint, it is a time thing, but it's a very different. It seems very different, and so that's part of the challenge, I think, for people. Like, what am I not getting with what I'm already doing by adding this?
Right. What I find. Go ahead. Go ahead, Mark.
I was going to throw in my 2 cents there. One of the big things I've found when I deal with people coming over from LinkedIn, first of all, LinkedIn, they may not think of it this way, but they've spent years building their network on LinkedIn. Okay, so they come to Google Plus and they're like, well, nothing's happening here. I'm not, nothing's going on. Well, you spent years building your stuff on LinkedIn. So think back to when you first got started in LinkedIn and how long it took to take traction. So they're almost expecting almost immediate results from social media efforts on, on Google Plus, and they're not going to see that. And also, LinkedIn has a lot of once you get past a certain mysterious number of connections, you can no longer export your connections. So they find that they've spent a long time building a huge, thousands of connections, and they can't find them on Google Plus. There's some serious work to be done to get your connections over here, and Google Plus also has limitations because they're trying to protect us from spammers. So you can only import so many people. So some of the people I've dealt with that are very successful on LinkedIn run into that. Getting connections over and connecting, building their network here is the thing that usually ends up grinding them to a halt. Even though they're very enthusiastic about it, they can't get their network over here, so they kind of give up. So let
me ask you a question. When a lot of people come over, and I'm not saying specifically even for LinkedIn, but it definitely applies for that. When people come over into Google Plus, they're looking for some of the same people that they had in their other places.
Yes.
Right? And that's their primary thing, is like, how can I connect with everybody that I knew over there now in this new place? And I've always encouraged people to not do that, primarily because that's not the culture that we've got here. Right. The culture here is about finding the topic first, meaning what you're looking for, and then you'll connect to the other people. Now, I understand if you've spent hours or days or years making connection, you're hoping that you might also be able to connect in this new place, but what I've found most valuable is starting out by looking for the topic, then identifying who it is that you could connect with here, and then the rest sort of is drawn to that. Is that something that LinkedIn people are running into the same kind of problem, you think?
I don't look at it like that. I don't look at that I want to connect with the same people. But on LinkedIn, I can look at them before I connect with them, because I get a lot of people that want to connect with me, right? And I'm not one of those super rigid people, like I'm not going to connect with you unless I personally know you, but I also don't connect with everybody. So I look at them and see, is this somebody that I want to connect with, right? And then on
and
Google,
do you do that on Google Plus?
No,
you can't.
because I look at these circles, right? So you have these circles and you connect with that, and then you just have like all these people. So that's the way that I don't know if I want
Someone's told you a different way.
No, I'm just saying like intuitively, when
Right.
you get in there. So there's people that I know that are on Google, and that's fine. But then
But think of it in LinkedIn words, terminology. If you're on LinkedIn and someone wants to connect with you, what do? Do you look for a grouping where they were part of it, or do you look specifically at that person?
I look at that person.
So why wouldn't you do the same thing on Google Plus?
I do that on Google+, but I'm saying that when somebody reaches out to me, I do look at them.
Mhm.
I haven't found any. The information seems a lot lighter, I guess I would say, on Google+ than on LinkedIn. Like if somebody wanted to connect with me on Google+, I'd go look them up on LinkedIn.
Right.
So, yeah.
I think it's a very different beast, LinkedIn and Google+. And LinkedIn clearly is a B2B, business-to-business platform, whereas Google+ is both business-to-business and business-to-consumer. So if you look at some of the people who've migrated onto the Google+ platform very successfully, you've got people like Cadbury's with 3.5 million followers, H&M, the fashion chain, the B2C company with 3.5 million followers. Whereas you look at IBM, they've currently got about 20,000 followers. The B2B company has always been more conservative than the B2C sector. And I think that's part of it. One of the great things with LinkedIn when it came on the scene was everybody understood it. Hey guys, it's a big network. And that's evolved into what is effectively a huge CRM database. And B2B people understand CRM. They know what a CRM database is. They know how to use it. But it's a different mindset with Google+.
I agree that it's a topic search, because that is what I do on Google+. And when I've connected with all of you, it was because, with the exception of Marianne, but it's because I searched for topics and found and read what you all wrote and commented on, and I realized that you were the authorities on these things, and I liked what you said. I liked how you said it, and so I wanted to build those relationships. Where on LinkedIn, I do find a lot of false and fluffed up kind of resumes and things, because we can write our own, of course, and edit them. And people that are claiming they're at one job and they aren't anymore. They put some old positions. And so I don't count on that information that I find. I'll look who they're connected to, but even that doesn't tell me enough. I want to see what they've written. And I do check those things out, because I'm a little more rigid on who I connect with, because then I'm giving them all my connections and almost like an open endorsement that, oh yeah, they're a good guy, or that's a good person. So I don't use it the same way, because I'm B2B, but in a different way. I mean, the way I supply services, it's different, because I'm a solo. Unlike Marianne's company is looking for big companies.
Well, I think it's interesting that Marianne points out that she's not finding the information she needs on Google Plus to really tell if somebody's legit. And it's almost funny. I've seen a number of people who are LinkedIn experts who will prophesy, will teach all day long, you must have a complete profile, and then I look them up on Google Plus, because I look up people on every network they're on, and it's like, I am a something trainer, and that's it, and they might have one, and I'm like, dude, you follow the same rules and you'll connect with people, because Google actually gives you a very rich profile. You can embed links to landing pages. You can do a lot more creative things with your Google Plus profile than you can do on LinkedIn, but people aren't exploiting that, and as you probably noticed, Marianne, trying to get an understanding of how circles work, I think, is the first wall that people run into, because they're so used to a more rigid, they're more used to connections and something like an address book, and then they get hit with this crazy circles idea, and it's a very fluid way of letting you kind of set up multi-tiered contacts, connections, and they never get that, so they end up with this huge mess where they're connecting with people through circle shares because somebody told them that's the way to do it, and they get a bunch of bots or cat pictures all day, and it's very frustrating because I would always say the first thing you need to look at when you're coming over is understand how circles work. Think up a system that's going to work for you, and it's going to evolve. Your circle systems are going to evolve. For example, as a social media person, I look at engagers, and I have different levels of circles. One big circle that everybody goes into when I grab a circle share, and I gave a little teaser that I'm going to share you guys something I learned today. So I'm going to get right to that.
Okay.
So one big circle everybody goes into, and then if they engage with posts, they +1 or they interact with me, they get moved up. Engagement-wise, I know these people are interested in what I'm saying, so I'm going to bring them up to where I start seeing more of what they're doing and interact with them. And something I've been getting more connection invitations on LinkedIn, and I'm a real lightweight on LinkedIn. Okay, I have less than 500 connections, and I'm not a lion. Okay, so I'm very cautious about who I connect to. But I've been getting more and more connection invites now that I'm on Google Plus, and I went and looked at all of the. I had about 10 I went through and reviewed today. Every single one of them, no, that's a lie, about 70% were in my gatekeeper circle on Google+. They were people who I brought in through a circle share, and they either went to my Google+ profile where I have a special email address that people can connect with me on LinkedIn, or they checked me out on LinkedIn and they went way down under my, how to connect with Mark section, way down at the bottom. So they have to look hard. I don't post all that right in plain view. But there are people from Google Plus connecting with me on LinkedIn. So I think it's kind of interesting that most of my connections are now on LinkedIn are now coming from Google Plus. People I connect with on Google Plus. So that's something to think about.
I think one thing that it just reminds me of the adoption stage that it's at is I remember like when Facebook started, and don't cringe because I said that, but it's that when when it started, it was like, is this going to be a business platform or a personal platform? Because you're getting all these invites from people that you're both personally connected to and your professional people. So I know it was sort of like with LinkedIn, that's all business. So I don't put a bunch of personal stuff on there. That's not. And then and Twitter is a little more fun, but still business. The Facebook was, it was all kind of confusing for a while because it's like, all right, well, what am I going to do with this platform? Do I want to mix my professional world with my personal world? And then ultimately I decided no, because I don't know. I know my business contacts professionally, and that's great, and I know them, but I have my friends that I don't want to mishmash all that content, right? So ultimately, I decided to just use Facebook personally.
Yep.
And so now I just have a businessy kind of presence on Facebook. So I think Google Plus, I've gotten a lot of the same things, like so-and-so added you to a circle. So I've got people that I know personally that I've connected with, and then there's people professionally that I've connected with too. So it's kind of, I think so far what my assessment is, there's a lot of great features like this Hangout. That's a great thing that I will love to use around my business. I need to kind of figure out what to do with it beyond that, and what world is it going to occupy.
So let me ask a question, because I'm not, even though I do have a lot of activity on Google+, I'm not a real social media guy, per se. That's not my background. I came from a different realm. But when I'm here, I am finding, because that's how I make my living, is training people how to use this Hangout tool. It's incredibly wonderful for doing marketing and broadcasting of a message. You have your own TV network and all these wonderful things we can talk about. But I'm a small business, just like Susan's saying. I'm a solopreneur, or I have others that I partner with for various projects. I'm okay being the face. And I think many business people are not okay being the face of their business necessarily. And I think that's where there's a bit of a disconnect, because Google actually almost requires you to be the face when you're inside Google+, unless you're primarily posting as a page. And if you're doing it primarily as a page, the majority of people in Google+ will leave you alone and they won't interact with you.
Right.
Because they don't know you, the person behind the page, yet. Unless you're a big name that's already been established, then they understand the page. So the growth process, it seems, in Google+, is you almost need to come out from behind the business moniker, and then you can build a business and potentially start moving things over into that page. Whereas I think potentially many LinkedIn people will want to start just being the page, and they don't want to be a person in the social space. Is that anywhere near correct from your guys' perspective?
I think if you look at the growth process running in LinkedIn, where it came from, I mean, originally it was about finding a job, and 2/3 of the revenue still come from recruitment. And then the salespeople got it, and they realized what a fantastic sales discovery tool it was. And then finally the marketing people just got it. So that's how it progressed on LinkedIn. And I think it requires a different mindset now for those people to transfer to Google+. So if you got a salesperson now, if you were trying to explain to a salesperson how they could use Google+, what would you say to them? You know, how would you introduce them? How would you get them on board?
Is that a question you want me to answer, or?
It's just an open question to the panel.
My thought is, at least how I view it and how I am truly enjoying Google+, it's more collaborative. And I find it as a great resource for building trust with people and to get to know them a little bit deeper than I would on LinkedIn, because I see the more personal comments and I see more of a bantering and interaction. It might just be the groups that I've joined, you know, the different communities and the different circles. That might be it, because I know a couple of them I tried for a while, but it was too many cat pictures. And so I left that community. So for me, that's how I would tell somebody about it, that this is a fantastic new tool. It's organized differently than LinkedIn. I think of LinkedIn organized like Microsoft, and I think Google Plus is organized more like Adobe. And so there's more freedom, and you have to spend a little more time figuring out where everything is, but there's so much more potential with how to use this, and the benefit in the search engines is unmistakable. You cannot deny how much it has an effect on your search engine rankings, and especially if you employ the authorship tool alongside that.
I would add, just to give you a different look at this, Google Plus is LinkedIn is like you're doing business in the office. Okay, you're in the office, you're in the boardroom. Google Plus is you're out on the golf course, so you're still doing business, but you're interacting with people in a more relaxed way. You might see a little bit more of the human side of them. As far as building a network, I mean, depending on the kind of your business you're in, you might actually do more of your networking out in events outside of the company rather than bringing people into the company. So from a networking tool, you shouldn't overlook it. Even if authorship or SEO don't directly pertain to kind of your job description, if you're not interested in being the front man for building SEO, you should still look at it as a networking tool, because a lot of the people that are on Google Plus, a number of my first level LinkedIn connections are all C-level, execs. They're all here on Google Plus. They're all interacting on a daily basis. LinkedIn doesn't have those kind of tools, and as Susan mentioned, the collaborative, ability. You just can't pop up a hangout with 5 or 6 different people on LinkedIn and say, hey, that's a great idea. Let's talk about that right now. Let's get together face to face. So those tools don't exist. There's a learning curve to Google Plus, and you're going to stumble a few times trying to get a grip on it. But from a professional networking standpoint, I don't think people should not look at it as Facebook at all. That's wrong. Everybody keeps comparing it to Facebook, and it is really not Facebook. It's just a more relaxed LinkedIn would be one way to look at it in this context.
I think that to your point about LinkedIn, yeah, you can't just hop on a collaborative medium and say, hey, just start talking about stuff. I mean, that, and even in groups, I have a group that I own that has 750 members in it, and I know that they read the posts, and I know that because people will privately message me about things. It's not always easy to get dialogue going in groups. And then there's also a lot of junk in a lot of the groups, right? So people post, just spammy kind of stuff. So I don't, like in my group, I'm really careful not to let spam get in the feed because I don't want people to leave the group with a bunch of junk messages. So I make sure that they're valuable posts. And I monitor that pretty closely. But yeah, you're right. There's not that level of engagement like we're having right now. So yeah.
If I were to try to answer Greg's question about if a salesperson was coming over here, what would I tell them to do? Was that sort of the question, Greg?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. I would probably.
What's going to get them to stick?
Yeah, I'd split it into two pieces. One, I would say, because I'm a Hangout guy, look at how phenomenal this tool is. You can, when you do find the right people, you can connect with them face to face. There are no geographic boundaries. You can gain so much more from a discussion with them that can take place in 10 minutes. That might take you 10 weeks to do outside of a visually loaded, semantically dense environment, to quote some people. So I would push them into the concept of what this tool could potentially do for them, and then say, okay, but now your next step is, once you've understood a little bit about the tool, is how do you find the right people to connect with? So then I'd say this is the method for a salesperson, is what are you interested in personally, and what are you interested in professionally? And you should look for that inside the network. Search for it. Search for those words, those phrases, and then you will see people that are talking about those things. And then you should listen first. Listen to what they're saying. Identify, just like Susan was saying, I think earlier, do they say the things that you can agree with or that you would disagree with, but you can communicate with them in a way? Do you like the way they are saying it? Can you relate to them in one way or another? And then join them into a conversation. And that's done relatively easily by just commenting. You can add a comment to something they posted. This is the key here, is I think you listen first rather than just start pushing stuff out there and expecting everybody to interact. And you may be famous in another environment, but here you've kind of got to start by being a follower first. Then you will easily identify those that are communicating in a realm that you can connect with, and then all of a sudden they'll realize, wow, you are big time. I'd love to connect more with you, and then there you go.
So is there a way to chat?
Is there what?
Is there a way, like if you're doing another kind of platform, or is there a way to chat while you're doing a Hangout? Or,
yes.
Yeah, it's here on the left, right? Okay, I got it.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I was going to say, Marianne, since you have a community on LinkedIn, and I've got a pretty solid background in those too. I used to manage quite a few. You might be blown away if you take some real time. I mean, it takes a while to get some traction, which I'm sure you know. Mm-hmm. But we have a community. For example, Susan's a member of a community I have where we can organize community hangouts where people can interact, and the tools that Google provides. We're not even using half the stuff you can do in a hangout here regarding screen shares and doing a presentation and all that. So a lot of the tools that you might be used to in some other professional platforms, but not just hangouts, just the way that Google is built. Google looks at things more of like they just like to build raw tools that we all plug together and build our own things from. So to a lot of people, it probably seems like some rough edges around certain Google products, and it's not very appealing to them. But if you step back and say, well, what if I took this and I did this and added this? And when you add a page and a community as kind of a core to your presence on Google+, you kind of open up a whole lot of interesting ways you can interact with people and engage them. So just something to look at, a little. You just don't have that toolbox on LinkedIn. I mean, it's certainly where the people are, but if you could get them here to where all the tools are, it's great. So it's hard to sell them on that. I don't know how I'd answer Greg's question there to get people over. How do you get someone to drink the Kool-Aid without holding them down and pouring them in their mouth? I don't know.
So, Greg, with the way I answered the question, what would your follow-up be on that?
Yeah, well, I think there's several threads that people have brought up there. I mean, if I talk about my personal experience, I bounced off Google Plus first time round, But what's really got me anchored this time round is finding some communities that I can join and participate in and be part of and learn from. And there's a whole bunch of stuff I don't know about LinkedIn. I know 100th as much as probably most people do that are more experienced on LinkedIn than I am. But it doesn't really matter because I'm learning all the time and I'm part of those communities and I'm getting value from them and I keep coming back. So I think for me, the thing that makes the biggest difference, the easiest transition is for people to find some communities and join some communities, because from LinkedIn there is a sort of direct parallel with the groups. People are used to groups, participating in groups, special interest groups. So the communities are kind of similar to that, so they can relate to that.
Yeah, so
And
early on in your Google Plus experience, they didn't have communities of that.
No.
Right.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when communities first came out, to be quite honest, I thought they were a real nuisance, because my page was filling up with hundreds of invitations to communities that I had no interest in whatsoever.
Right.
So I ignored the communities initially.
Which probably isn't bad. I mean, it's better to search, again, for what you're interested in and what you want to not only learn about, but also give. And I find that it's a two-way street on here, and sometimes I don't always plan on it going both ways, but it seems to almost every time because of the communities I've chosen. Mm-hmm. So I'm really pleased. I just noticed for me on LinkedIn, the experience is too much of the automated pushes. Every time I show up there and want to spend some time, I can see the splatter of all the automation. And I do get some great articles. I mean, you had a great one today. But you're in one of my key groups that I follow. There's certain people I check in with all the time, and I want to see what you have. But there are others that it's always the automated post just to fill up the time, to fill up their threads, to fill up their profiles, rather than posting on purpose, like Ronnie says, something that requires thought.
Yeah, and I do that when I look for topics. Like, one of the things I do is I look at links before I share them. Like, a lot of people just, they just share and retweet and share, and you could be sharing a dead link, and you do that enough times, and it desensitizes people to your content, right? So, and I also don't want, I use a tool that I propagate a page on my site with content, and so I also am sensitive not to send them away. I'm trying to send them back to the vanilla group site, which that's where they land when they click on those links. And so I do a lot of work to make sure, even though I share frequently, I make sure it's high value content and it's not just junk for the sake of being active. X amount of tweets a day are going to get you this kind of visibility. That's not what I back into. It's more the value of those posts.
Now, they don't. Go ahead.
I was just going to follow up on Greg there. Oh, go ahead, Greg. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that actually there are some very good LinkedIn communities too. I mean, I spend a lot of time in the LinkedIn strategies group that you might be aware of. That's a really good group, LinkedIn group on Google+.
Got it.
I was going to say, you hit something, Greg, which I think stops a lot of people. Email notifications. By default, Google pretty much has everything turned on, and once you start joining communities and you signing up for circles, it is super easy to get flooded. And a lot of people and Google doesn't really do a very good job of kind of directing you to that notifications page, which is a massive list of things you can adjust. So it's very intimidating. And also, people don't understand, once again, coming back to circles, how you can adjust notification levels for individual circles. You can even make circles silent so you can stay connected to people, so you can communicate with them, because you have to have someone, just like on LinkedIn, you kind of have to be a first level connection to send someone a message, unless of course they're in a group. That's an exception. But on Google Plus, you have to be mutually circled to communicate with each other via private messages. People don't quite understand that. But then they have no notification adjustment. They haven't set the settings for individual circles. They don't understand that. But the email, like every community, every time you join a community, you're wide open. You're getting notifications in email. You're getting notifications in your stream. Mm-hmm. And people are just like, and they quit. And I really wish Google would invert that whole model and make it so that when you join things, you're getting the most minimum amount possible, and then you get to go, and once you get a grip on it, and you get to turn up the fire hose on the stuff that you want to get, you know, and not the other way around. So I think that throws a lot of people off.
I do agree with Mark, the idea that the notifications are a little bit overbearing when you first get here, but there is the ability, you can actually communicate with anybody whether they're in your circle or not, privately. So that's not a limitation of Google+, but the notifications are on, like Mark's saying, and sometimes just way too much. So what I've done is I take all the emails that I get and I file them away. I don't even look at them. They just go right into my humongous storage place in the sky. And the reason why that's there is because I get too many notifications, and when something really important misses, I miss it, and they say I sent it to you 3 days ago, I can search for it by date within my Gmail program and find it, and then I can respond to it. So that's honestly the only reason why I do stuff with the email thing at all anymore.
Well, the other thing, too, that a lot of people are confused about is, and we've talked about this, I was too, to sign up for Google+, and for Google, you don't have to have a Gmail account. You can use your branded account and then go corral all your little splinters that come off of Google+, and harness them in one presence, rather than saying, oh, now I have to have my Gmail account and I have to do this. It's still your one branded account. And so that gets back to, the thing with LinkedIn, people change their emails because they change companies. Solos don't do that as much. So some people would want to have the Gmail account to have something separate that's clean, that no matter where they are, it's always going to be the same. I think that is one of the stumbling blocks. I've heard it from several clients, like, oh, God, one more thing I have to log into, one more account I have to create, and I don't want to do it, and I don't want they look at Google as the power monger, the privacy invader, and everything else, rather than, here's some great tools for free.
Let me ask the LinkedIn folks a question. Why are you on LinkedIn? What's your purpose of being there? Either one of you, or any of you, if you want.
Marianne?
Yeah, I stay connected with my community. There's a lot of people that I've known for years that I stay in touch with on LinkedIn. I keep track of them. I can see what's going on. If there's, it's a low-touch way to stay connected with people. So, for example, if I see somebody change jobs, or there's a lot of different things to do. The other reason too is I can research people. It saves all the time. I just did a big session at Dreamforce about this. People are providing information about themselves, and so you don't want to waste time when you first meet with a prospect. Everybody's trying to figure out who everybody is, right? So you should be on LinkedIn and figure out who they are and find where there's any synergies or overlaps or anything like that, and then you can really hit the ground running when you start your meeting with them. So there's a lot of reasons to be on LinkedIn. I think I was like 25,000. That's my number. So I've been on it for a long time. I probably didn't start leveraging it really heavily until the last, I don't know, years back, but it was just like everybody. I know when there was a book that came out, now I'm on LinkedIn, now what, right? Because it was sort of the same thing like I think where Google Plus is people like, okay, well, I'm on it now what, right? So new book idea.
So it sounds like you're using LinkedIn in a social realm. I mean, you're keeping up with what people are doing, and if they change jobs, or you learn a little bit about what they're doing, plus you research them a little.
There I stay in touch with clients on there. I market the business. I use it real multidimensionally, not so much social, but it's B2B. I get a lot of traffic. I get a lot of companies that call me. I use it for search when they're looking for certain things. They find me on LinkedIn and call the company.
So why would you even consider coming to another place like Google Plus?
I'm just learning about it, right? So that's the thing. That's kind of where everybody's at, is why would I want to, right? But like this platform right here, that's something that's interesting enough to say, okay, well, what else is there?
Okay.
Right. Something I found talking. Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Greg. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, for me as a B2B marketer, LinkedIn is a tool. And if another tool comes along that looks like it might be better or have more promise or give me more opportunities, then I want to investigate that. And I could see how quickly Google Plus was growing, and it's recently, I think, overtaken Twitter as the second biggest social network. So it's something I want to know about. I don't think Google Plus is there yet. I think it's not yet evolved. It's still an immature platform, but I think it's incredibly promising, and I'm really excited by where it's going. And I'm not going to leave LinkedIn. Sorry.
Right. Well, a lot of the LinkedIn people I've talked to, and this is very specific to the kind of business you're in, have a great deal of success with LinkedIn's advertising in the network. Okay, so I know a couple of people who pretty much almost generate 100% of their business, and they're in specific consulting fields, from LinkedIn ads. Now, that's a good thing and a bad thing. It's great that, this is one reason why they say I have to be on LinkedIn, because it works for me and they can prove it. But I also think that is something that is going to be specific to the kind of business that you're in. So if you're not seeing that kind of success, you should probably look at other things and just know what's going on. But the other thing is that when there are any platform changes on LinkedIn, this really affects these people. And for example, some changes a while back to groups really hit some people pretty hard that rely on the ability to be able to post to groups and stuff, and that hurts them. And this is why I say to these people, the reason, don't look at Google Plus as something that's going to solve your problems, but seriously, if you have everything invested in one platform, and it's fantastic that it's working for you, that's great, I'm not going to question that, but every time that platform changes, and LinkedIn is taking a different direction here, they want to be a content delivery platform, so people need to kind of wake up to that. LinkedIn is moving away from their old model, and it's not me saying that. LinkedIn has been saying that for a few months now. You should probably get one foot out the door and think about, just start thinking about other ways. So even if you're just, you're not diving 100% into Google Plus right now, maybe now's the time to start working at identifying which of your critical contacts you want to see if they're on Google Plus. Maybe now's the time at looking up setting up a community, because it takes a long time to build traction with a community. You're not going to have overnight success with that. Just like on LinkedIn, it could take months or years to get a community going. But if you're early in on the game, particularly with communities that might rely on search, search in the title to get them to build a membership, which is a tactic you also use for LinkedIn groups. You have a title that people will be searching for. You want to be in on the game kind of early so that you can end up, the people who created LinkedIn groups early on have massive memberships, but that's because they created a LinkedIn group 5 years ago, and they benefited from being discovered in search. If you don't take these steps now, if you wait 5 years from now, you're going to be in the same position that you'd be on LinkedIn if you tried to start a group today. You'd be way behind everybody else. So, just think about where your business will be in 5 years and where your customers will be in 5 years. It's great that they're on LinkedIn right now, so spend 90% of your time on LinkedIn, but think about where they'll be in 5 years, and maybe you should put 10% of your time into another platform, whether it be Google Plus or something else, and start building something is what I would say to them. So.
All right, thank you for all of that. Oops, I'm sorry. Sorry. The YouTube thing went off. I think we should kind of wrap it up, though, just because everybody's time is so valuable. We're keeping Greg up very late. I'm sure his cocoa has gone cold. You're very kind to join us, everybody. I appreciate it. But this was a good discussion. This is what I wanted to hear about, were the real uses that people have and what's really holding them back as far as dipping a toe in, or seeking out new types of connections. Like Ronnie was saying, why look just for the same group and bring them over here? Why not expand and then maybe later crisscross some of them where they're comfortable? Mm-hmm. And so I think that's one of the opportunities. People are getting stuck in the have to recreate exactly what I had here over here. Why would you do that? You have that, and it's fine, and if it works for you, you're great. But the takeaway from this discussion was, you don't need to just keep rebuilding the same thing over and over. Find new ways to use things, new ways to reach out, new ways to maximize your influence, your engagement, and your search results. I mean, this is building your reputation as a true resource, as somebody that, people are going to turn to as the expert in public relations. I mean, that's where I started. You want to position everybody or your clients or you as the expert on a specific topic. Authorship is a way to do that. You want the media and the magazines and everybody else that wants to ask somebody about something to find you as that resource. If someone wants to talk about Hangouts, they're going to look for Ronnie. That's who they want to talk to, because he's the one who knows. And he is the expert because he writes about it, he shares about it, he video, everything. So we know and we can see that evidence. So to me, that's more what you're trying to do over here, is to expand that reputation and that presence.
I've heard it put, not specifically for LinkedIn, but like Facebook coming over to Google+. And somebody said, I forget who, I'm going to just point it to Mark Traphagen because I'm sure he was one that echoed it. Yeah, and you might not know his name. So, but anyways, he's a guy here on Google+. That's good to follow. He was saying maybe you keep your existing clientele on Facebook and you look for the new ones on Google+. And this is sort of the outreach environment for new potential in Google+. And if you can maintain both, then you should do that. But one key thing that I would just really, really try to help anyone considering moving into the Google+ realm, the thing that people hate the most is when you come into Google+ and all you do is post a link to something you made and then you disappear and you're gone. Mm-hmm. Most people will actually ignore you or more aggressively just get out of, I don't even want to see that person. So the idea here, it's different than other places. The people here want to read about why should I click the link. Give me a tease. Give me something that's valuable enough that makes sense that I want to click the link. Otherwise, I'm moving on to something else. And I think that's different than other places where you're just sharing a resource with that link. Here it's not considered in good form, let's say.
Mm. Right. Where you have the post says the headline, the link says the headline, the description has the headline. Yeah. There is nothing unique about it, nothing opinionated. You're right. That's what I do like the most, I think, about Google+. No wasted clicks unless I choose to.
I think some of the people who are the most successful on Google+, at its heart, Google+ is a microblogging platform. So people like Mark Traphagen and David Amerland who do long-form posts get more interaction from people. So they're actually blogging on Google+. Now, of course, they also have their own blogs. They might share a link, but it's not unusual to see someone pump out 3 or 4 paragraphs and then say, and then I wrote more about it here. The stuff that you see going on in LinkedIn groups with link spamming, that is not appreciated here at all. So there is a different culture when it comes to that. And you probably won't get a lot of friends very fast if that's how you do it. So, think about it as a microblogging platform and let people know how, your thought process and show a little bit of your personality, and you'll build a following. You will build your network here. I have, I don't call them followers, I call them circle pals. I have over 8,000 circle pals on Google+. In less time, I've got 400 and some odd people I'm connected to on LinkedIn. So which, at least for me, which platform do you think is a better networking platform?
Right.
And I'm not saying I have the best personality in the world either. So, and I'm managing to make it work. So
I think it would be interesting to see, like if somebody was going to step into Google+, to say, okay, well, here's 10 examples of what people are doing in the space, because it's easy to see that on LinkedIn. So you can click on somebody that is really leveraging LinkedIn very heavily, and there you've got an example of what they're doing. I think on Google+, where would you even start looking for that person, right? So having those 10 people that here's a B2B person, here's a CEO, here's a social media person here, because people that are really heavily involved in social media, that's not necessarily in my domain either, because that's usually a lot of personal kind of interaction that they have with the world, and that's great, and I do connect with some of those, but I'm just saying from a marketing B2B standpoint, it would be really great to have, here's some examples of this, here's some examples of that, and then this is what they get from that.
So that could be something maybe Susan could pull together for you if you told her what groupings you wanted, but without that being done, your simple answer is, if it really was a question, is you search for it. That's it. You're done. In other words, you search, you're going to see the people talking about those specific phrases or words that you searched for inside Google+, and you'll just see them. And then when you decide to read what they've written, you can tell right then, is this person blowing smoke, or are they just spamming it, or is this something real? And then you start, in essence, you can add them to a I'm going to check them out later list, which is your circle. You just start building a circle of those that showed up consistently when you search for that topic, and then you literally will be curating your own place that you want to see what they're saying.
I'm so glad people can't see what I name my circles.
Yeah, right, and that's a good point. You could say, I'm going to throw this away later, but I'm looking now. You know, that's they don't see that. They just know that you've added them to a circle, and they're happy. They might add
like,
you back. No. So, but it's
Actually,
it's a
I've got
valid
the-
request. You're wanting a curated list of these are the people. And when circle
Right.
sharing first started, long time ago, this is what it was about. People saying these people engage well. These people talk about this particular topic. This is, it were really focused circles. There's still some people that do that nowadays, but the majority are not that. Unfortunately, the majority are you plus me, I'll plus you, and we'll all grow together. And that's, in my mind, not very useful when you get
Well,
right.
I think the original thing of circles has shifted a little bit to communities. So those specific topics became communities, and then the pluses and the circles just became, oh yeah, you don't look awful, so I'll put you over in this.
That's a good tactic right there. If you search and you start to see a community that answers the question that you're looking for, then you just go into that community, and then you see who's talking about it, who seems to make sense, and then you can add them to your circles.
Right.
The reason why I say adding them to your circles, why that matters, is because when you're in Google+, you can either go to what's called the home stream, where you just see all kinds of stuff which is based on who you have circled, or you go to specific communities, because otherwise you won't know where to look necessarily. So you can control, in essence, filter the content that you see in your home stream by who you have added to your circles. So that's why finding people based on their topics and then curating them into something like a circle on your end is beneficial to you in the long run, because that'll let you see the stuff that you might be interested in.
Right.
Yeah,
so it all comes back to circle management.
Yeah, what I meant by examples is, so when you're talking about the benefits of Google Plus versus other things, right? So you can say, okay, here's what you're looking for when you're doing all these things, right? And then if you're on Google Plus, here's an example of somebody that's doing all these things, and this is what the value of those things are, right? So it's sort of like building the case for it. And so here's, when they post this, they're getting an SEO advantage, and here's an example of that. Or when they do this, or whatever it is. And so then that way, that would be a good way to explain to somebody why it would make sense, instead of, well, you get in here and search and just kind of find what you want, but I don't know what I want, right? And I don't know what I would look like.
So in other words, you don't understand, or some people might not understand the value of being in Google Plus to begin with, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's like, what is it,
okay.
right?
Well, here's my
all
simple.
I know is Hangouts.
I've got the simple answer. You ready? If Google.com matters to your business, look at how Google Plus is spelled and make a business-based decision. There it is.
I like it.
In other words, Google Search owns Google Plus, and if search is relevant to your business in any way whatsoever, Google Plus probably matters to you in some way. So, because this is the think about it, Google Plus is a product of Google Incorporated.
Right. Right.
So you're working right in that area. So.
Yeah, I think it's good, because there's a lot of people that do LinkedIn consulting and explaining this is the value you get from this is how it helps your SEO, those types of things. And so I think, once people really understand where it impacts their presence and the difference they can make and where they could grow new routes, right? So I've got all this stuff going on here, and now I can enhance it by doing this over here. And I think that's what people need to be able to easily find.
Right.
Well, a lot of people will say LinkedIn is great for driving traffic to your blog and all this kind of stuff. And I would just love to see their Google Analytics accounts, because what I'm seeing, and I use tracking URLs so that I can even see exactly what group, if I share the same link to maybe 2 or 3 groups, and I don't go more than that, I'm going to know exactly what group got a hit on that link. And but when I look at Google Analytics, what I'm seeing is my Google Stream is where I'm getting my traffic, or Google Organic. It's all got Google in front of it. And LinkedIn is like a single-digit percentage of any traffic that I generate. So I really think there's kind of a fallacy in all this. Well, LinkedIn will boost your stuff because my company page doesn't really show up on search ever, and I'm active on the company page. I mean, a lot of my LinkedIn acts, other than my personal profile, that will show up in search, okay, if I search for Mark Bang. Almost nothing else I do. Now, some stuff posted in groups, that is true, will show up in search. So every once in a while, one of my old posts from a group I did 9 months ago will pop up somewhere. So that is, they do show up, but you just don't get that kind of traffic that I'm seeing. So if that kind of stuff really matters to you, if you're spending all your time posting to LinkedIn groups thinking you're going to build SEO value for your website, and not just direct traffic from those posts, but search traffic, I think you ought to spend, like I say, spend 10% of your time on Google Plus and do the same thing and do it for like 90 days and see where your traffic's coming from.
That is a great formula that I think we should end on. Just to wrap this up, let's dare people. Take 10% of the time you spend on LinkedIn, dip a toe in, and see what happens. Track it for 90 days. And I think that's a great thing to do. And if you know how to set up unique tracking for your links, do it. And really look in your analytics and see where they're coming from. So that's my dare for the end of this. 10%, that's all I'm asking, 10% of what you would give to LinkedIn. Try it. And visit a Hangout or 2, and you're going to see it's a beautiful place to also be. Thank you so much, everybody. I truly appreciate it. We're going to do a recap post at some point in the next couple of days. It takes us a while to write that. And I'm going to post an article that Marianne shared on LinkedIn today, because I think it's a very helpful one. And it goes along with this topic, too, the effectiveness of LinkedIn and those stats, good and bad. And I look forward to seeing you all again. Thank you so much. I'm going to end this broadcast.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Bye
you.
now.